There have been way too many MMOs on Kickstarter that failed to see the light of day. So I am interested in seeing the Lazy Peon opinion about that topic. So let's give this video a watch.
From the early to mid-2010s, Kickstarter was seen as a beacon of hope for the MMO genre. A place where ambitious...
You know what's funny? I actually know all of these titles. Jesus, man. Crowfall. I even played that one. It was horrendous.
Ideas could finally break free from the endless wave of WoW clones chasing Blizzard's success. Fast forward over a decade, and the sheer mention of Kickstarter and MMO in the same sentence is enough to send even the most optimistic fan of the genre into a state of PTSD.
Yeah, because Kickstarter is literally synonymous with being scammed. Everyone just now connects these words together. I mean, for MMOs at the very least, because no MMO on Kickstarter, I think, has ever seen the light of day or was successful. I mean, I don't remember a single Kickstarter MMO that actually was profitable or even came out.
But is this reaction warranted? Do Kickstarter MMOs
Ashes of Creation kids, by the way, in the corner?
Truly deserve their negative
reputation?
Hard. How many of them were actually scams?
90%
Buckle
of
up,
them.
because today, with the power of hindsight and data-driven analysis, we'll be diving deep into what I call the Kickstarter curse.
You can't really blame that on Kickstarter though. It's the developer behind that. Okay, oh damn, that's a good editing. Not gonna lie, Chief, that is some fire editing. Well done for Lazy Peon. He's actually
it really
upgraded
did
his channel.
feel like anything was possible. Veteran devs from classic MMOs were leaving studios to create passion projects. Small indie teams were pitching worlds that promised freedom, immersion, and community. Everything we'd felt that modern MMOs had lost. But there was one tiny problem. Making an MMO is insanely expensive, and yet many of these teams were asking for pocket change, sometimes less than what a AAA studio would spend on coffee for a month. It was the perfect storm of ambition, naivety, and fan-driven hype, and for a brief moment, it looked like it might actually work. So I wanted to find out what really happens to all these games. I went back through over 30 crowdfunded MMOs from the past decade, tracked their launch status, shutdown dates, and development timelines, then crunched the numbers to find out if the Kickstarter curse is indeed a real thing.
It's not a... Oh, Jesus, my voice, holy. It's not a Kickstarter curse. It's just the fact that either it was a scam from the start, second, the developers had absolutely no idea what they were doing. So it's just a case of one of these two, and that is more than enough to understand why every single MMORPG on Kickstarter failed.
2012 to 2015, the Kickstarter gold rush. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to the early 2010s, a time when the MMO genre was starving for innovation, and Kickstarter looked like it could be the answer. The first real explosion came in 2012 with Star Citizen.
God, I knew he was going to say that. Holy, please tell me there is a Star Citizen Andy watching this video right now. Honestly, I mean, everyone knows by this point this game is a scam. It will never see the light of day. And don't tell me you can buy a ship and use it inside the game. Like, don't. Let's not go there, Chief.
Led by Chris Roberts, the creator of Wing Commander, this wasn't just a game pitch, it was a bloody movement. At a time when $500,000 on Kickstarter was considered huge, Star Citizen pulled in over $2 million through its initial campaign, and eventually ballooned into hundreds of millions via its own crowdfunding platform, going on to become one of the most expensive games ever developed. It promised a fully simulated universe, FPS combat, player-driven economy, massive space battles, basically every cool idea anyone had ever had for a sci-fi MMO all rolled into one.
It is real, guys, trust me.
It was the perfect dream, and at the time, nobody was really questioning the viability of any of it. We hadn't yet gone through years of Kickstarter disappointment. Back then, players wanted to believe. These early projects were built on trust that passion and community funding could achieve what publishers could not. What followed was an avalanche. Developers saw the success of Star Citizen and instantly jumped on the Kickstarter bandwagon, convinced that if they just asked nicely enough, players would throw money at their dream MMO too. Suddenly, every veteran developer or indie dreamer with a design doc and a logo was pitching the next great MMO. Projects like The Repopulation, Camelot Unchained, Shroud of the Avatar, and Pantheon Rise of the Fallen all hit Kickstarter between 2012 and 2014, each one promising to bring MMOs back to their roots and fix what the genre had lost. MMO YouTubers
and people gobbled it up. It's so sad to see, but that was reality. People were so desperate at the time for a good MMO that they were just willing to throw money at pretty much anything.
Were covering these projects constantly, forums were buzzing with speculation, and players genuinely believed that we were witnessing the rebirth of a genre, a new golden age not funded by publishers but by the players themselves. The issue was, whilst all of these ideas sounded amazing, none of them had the budget, manpower, or infrastructure to actually pull them off. The amount of money these games were asking for on Kickstarter was a drop in the bucket compared to what they'd actually need to build a fully functioning MMO. Most campaigns were asking for a few $100,000, which sounds like a lot until you realize that even in 2013, that was barely enough to pay a small team for a year. Just to put this into perspective, in 2013, a typical game dev salary was roughly $80,000 per year. So even with a tiny 5-person team, they'll be burning through at least $400K annually. Vanilla WoW cost $63 million to initially develop back in 2004. Star Wars The Old Republic reportedly cost $200 million. Both Firefall and Tabula Rasa reportedly cost in the $100 million range, according to MMOs.com.
That's crazy.
Defiance.
Well, I mean, if you look at that, I mean, World of Warcraft is still the GOAT, and it costed almost half of the amount the other game spent. So this is kind of impressive if you think about that. But yeah, 63 million is definitely a nice amount of money for sure.
Hit 80 million, Rift somewhere between 50 and 70 million, Bless Online around 61 million, DCUO and The Secret World both about 50 million,
Man, DCUO was goated.
14 was
I played that
estimated
game so
at
much.
roughly $120 million. So yeah, as impressive as raising a couple million on Kickstarter might have seemed at the time, the reality was that these studios maybe had a year or two of runway before they'd need more cash. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Many turned to their own websites to continue crowdfunding, selling founders packs, opening pledge stores, or using that Kickstarter money to build a prototype that they could then use to pitch to investors or VCs. The MMO Kickstarter Golden Age lasted from 2012 through 2015. In that window, 22 out of the 34 MMOs I researched either achieved, attempted, or failed their initial funding. After 2015, the sentiment began to shift. Optimism faded, patience wore thin, and gamers began asking questions. 2016 to 2017, the last hurrah. 2016 to 2017 was the last hurrah for big money MMO Kickstarters. These were the final 2 years where MMOs managed to clear 7 figures on the platform, with Chronicles of Elyria in 2016 and Ashes of Creation in 2017. It was an interesting moment. You could already see the impatience of people creeping in. The first wave of crowdfunded MMOs hadn't produced much that was playable, but most of them were still early enough that people were still willing to wait a bit longer. We knew MMOs took a long time to make. Back then, not enough time had passed and not enough games had failed for people to fully lose faith. That's why both Chronicles of Elyria and Ashes of Creation still raised big money. They both promised a very different approach to MMO design. Chronicles pitched an MMO where characters age, can die permanently, and your soul continues in your child.
No, they meant in real life while they take your money. I don't think they meant in-game. I mean, this game is, as far as I remember it, was a straight-up scam. They didn't even try.
Ashes promised its node system where no 2 servers would be the same.
Yeah,
so even though
surely
people
it will
were
happen.
getting burnt out on Kickstarter MMOs,
we're so close, guys. It's an early access on Steam. Like, trust me, we are close.
They weren't ready to give up hope just yet. And this clip from my video in June 2016 sums up the mood at the time perfectly.
And this brings me on to something that could be the light at the end of the tunnel. In the past few years, we've seen a massive rise in the amount of games being produced out of crowdfunding and early access, with many of these games being incredibly ambitious projects, some of them doing really well and others not so well. Quite a large number of these games that are being funded are MMORPGs, due to the fact that these kind of games take years to make and most of them started their development after 2013. In the next few years we're going to start to see a lot of these games released. The reason I'm more optimistic for these MMOs is that the people making them are doing so out of their own choice and passion for the genre. They're working closely with the communities that funded them and appear to be more open to feedback than your typical AAA studios.
Hang on, this part here aged like milk.
A few crowdfunded MMORPGs that I'm personally excited to try are Crowfall, Chronicles of Valeria, Camelot Unchained, Gloria Victus, Life is Feudal, and Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, which is being made by the guy that created EverQuest.
So that was painful to watch. I was so young and naive, just an absolute time capsule. The funny thing is, I never actually got to play Chronicles of Valeria. Camelot Unchained still hasn't released. Crowfall and Gloria Victus came and went, and it was only about 11 months ago that I finally got to play Pantheon Rise of the Fallen for the first time.
Looks incredible.
Crazy stuff. Anyway, from 2016 to 2017, we still had hope.
Why would you even publish such an abomination? I truly don't understand the developers. Like, literally, just, I don't know, tell people they got scammed and call it a day. That is such a disrespect to actually let anyone play that. Holy, that was some garbage.
What happened in the years after, though, made sure that we would never see another Kickstarter MMO crack 1 million to this day. 2018 to 2025, the apathy years. From 2018 to 2025, only 7 notable MMOs popped up on Kickstarter. 2 of them failed to receive funding, and only 2 managed to raise over $200,000, one being some crypto game that people thought they'd see a return on investment, and the other being Stars Reach by Ralph Costa, which already spent years in development, already had something playable, and ran the campaign primarily to prove market interest to investors. People had stopped backing for a reason. By this point, we had watched multiple crowdfunded MMOs fail or shut down. The first wave was still nowhere near playable, dates slipped by years, updates slowed, trust eroded. Then 2020 hit. COVID disrupted everything, and Chronicles of Valeria, one of the big hype projects, showed what 4 years of development looked like with pre-alpha footage. 2020 Lazy Peon, take it away. Indie Studio sets out to make incredibly ambitious MMORPG and turns to Kickstarter for $900,000 funding, which is absolutely nowhere near enough money to make the game, but they don't make this clear during the Kickstarter, and backers don't understand how much MMOs cost to make, so they believe it's possible. The devs estimated that this incredibly ambitious MMO will be ready by the end of December 2017. They thought they could make an MMO in 2 years of development with $900,000. They continued crowdfunding through their website in hopes of getting the game to a demo state where they can attract a publisher, all this time keeping their backers under the illusion that the game is entirely funded through crowdfunding and not letting it be known that real investment is needed. The game eventually raised $7.9 million.
Yeah, it's called scamming the people and obfuscating information. They knew from the start this game won't see the light of day. They knew it.
Still a drop in the bucket compared to how much money is needed to make this game, but also 9 times the amount of money they initially asked for to finish the game on Kickstarter. They still couldn't find a publisher or private investment to fund the game. 11th of March 2020, they launch a big sale for land in a game that's nowhere near completion, and at this point will obviously never exist. Prices ranging from $65 to $1,350. 20th of March 2020. Pre-alpha testing begins, but it's basically just some shitty parkour tech demo that looks nothing like the game they advertised and has no MMO features. It looks like something that's been thrown together in Unity in a few weeks. 5 days later, they announced they've run out of money, finally come clean about looking for additional money for investors or publishers, staff laid off, game shut down. The fallout from Chronicles of Valeria did real damage to every crowdfunded MMO. Overnight, we went from hopeful optimists to jaded skeptics, and who can blame us? A lot of us assumed that the flashy Kickstarter trailers use real in-game footage. In reality, many of them were carefully constructed vertical slices. From 2019 to 2021, so many of these projects were either shut down, abandoned, or looked like straight up scams. We had Identity prove itself to be vaporware and be abandoned in 2019. Oath was both crowdfunded and abandoned within the time span of a few months. Guardians of Ember shut down, Pathfinder Online shut down. We had the disaster with Chronicles of Illyria, and we also saw Titan Reach fail its Kickstarter funding, then find outside investment, only to later shut down anyway. At this point, the Kickstarter curse was very much real.
What a cycle.
So this trailer was all the way back in January 2015. This isn't in the game. This isn't in the game. I'm pretty sure this shop isn't in the game. I didn't see it. This garage isn't in the game. The jail's not in the game. I didn't see the jewelry shop in the game. Guns and hunting wildlife. Nah. Back when I first saw this trailer, I thought this was actual content that was in the game. But it looks more like wallpaper engine. Right,
it was live.
In-game computer.
All a lie.
See that? House in the Woods. This was 6 years ago. It's almost like everything that was ever shown in this trailer was all completely fake. Really? They wanted to have boats and sailing the oceans in the game? Mate.
You can produce drugs, you can do smuggling or arms dealing.
This game was a prime example of a dev literally promising the entire world in a video game.
So that brings us to today, October
Straight up lying.
2025. Enough time has now passed that we can look at the majority of these projects with clear eyes. I present to you the spreadsheet. Here I tracked game, crowdfunding year, when they were first playable or fully launched, their current status, how much money they raised, and a verdict as to if I'd consider them a success or failure. Of the 34, I've only marked 4 as objectively successful so far. Guns of Icarus Online, Elite Dangerous, Adventure Quest 3D, and Albion Online.
I never even heard of these games except for Albion.
Is by far the most successful MMO to come out of crowdfunding. And it's the one that didn't use Kickstarter. They raised funds through their own site via founders packs. So if anything, that proves that the Kickstarter curse is very much real. Obviously, a lot of these games are still in active development, so I can't give a verdict on all of them, especially the more recent ones. But so
well, you know
far,
what's
with
going
the
to
current
happen,
data,
so it doesn't really matter.
MMOs have an 11.8% chance of being considered a success, a 14.7% chance of releasing and being an average game that was enjoyed by a niche community, and a 47.1% chance of complete failure, with 26.5% unranked. 73.5% of crowdfunded MMOs did end up being playable to some extent, whether it be early access, pre-alpha.
Yeah, I mean, you say playable, but, you know, is it though? Not really.
Or demo, whilst 26.5% never even produced something that you could
have
consider
a fun meter.
Playable. Of the 73.5% playable crowdfunded MMOs, 32% of them are still playable. 20% are still in early access with ongoing development, but not fully released. 36% of those shut down, and 12% are dormant in a state of limbo. The average time to go from Kickstarter to first playable in an alpha state was 3 years, with 5 years being the average to fully launch.
Man, Ashes of Creation sure did a number in this one, huh? 10 years in development, boys. Don't worry, it's coming.
After first becoming playable in alpha, the average time to then shut down was 3.2 years. In 2025, a common sentiment in the MMO community is that Kickstarter MMOs are scams, but is that actually true? Of the 34 games listed in the sheet, there's probably only 5 or 6 that I'd put in the scam category. Most of these failures to me look...
When people say scam, I don't think they mean like, you know, the developers just took the money and left. I think what they mean by scam is that the game never seen the light of day, or it wasn't in a really playable state, or it was missing features that were promised. So, you know, I think people consider these things as a scam as well. So that's why the fate in Kickstarter video games and like MMORPGs in general is so low right now. It is practically negative.
More like overambition, mismanagement, or money running out rather than deliberate fraud. It's definitely fair to say that many of the games listed here have at one point or another done things to massively mislead the people funding them though, oftentimes presenting their games in ways that seem closer to completion than what's true in reality. But to play devil's advocate, perhaps this was necessary for them to attract the outside investment needed to keep the lights on. Going into this investigation, I actually expected to find way more games that I'd consider straight up scams. But now I think a lot of these projects were run by extremely passionate idiots. People with zero business sense and big dreams that weren't grounded in reality. I've met so many people like this behind the scenes over the past decade whilst covering this genre. They're not bad people, and I do respect them for taking a risk, putting themselves out there and trying to bring something that they're passionate about to life. But it's often the blind leading the blind, and when you've sold someone a dream, the crash when that dream shatters can be devastating for everyone involved. To end on a lighter note, one big positive that indirectly came from the Kickstarter MMO era is how it pushed bigger studios to be more transparent. Players made it clear they wanted clear roadmaps, dev talks, and honest communication. Now you see update blogs, live letters, Q&A streams, and behind-the-scenes videos as standard across the genre. We may not have...
Yeah, the update blog from New World developers. Just let me know the game is dying. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that a lot.
Got the indie
Well, to be
MMO
honest,
revolution that
do.
we'd hoped for, but expectations change, studios now talk more, plans are public sooner, and if you go quiet for months, people notice. And for the Kickstarter curse, I think it's real. But that's it for this video. Tons of work went into this one.
Omega
so
real.
Please do give it a like if you want me to keep making more high-effort MMO content like this.
video.
And let me know in the comments what you think.
Damn, this was such a great video. I think I barely commented on most things just because he cleared everything up. Usually I love bringing my own take, but Lazy Peon did such a phenomenal work with this one. For sure. I mean, him and his editor are doing fantastic work. And I'll link this video in the description so you guys can watch it for yourself. Give it a like and a sub if you haven't already. But yeah, you know, just to throw my 2 cents in, yeah, I don't think the Kickstarter curse is like a thing, right? It's not the Kickstarter problem. It's more of the developers have absolutely no idea what the hell they were doing. Like, absolutely nobody. Only a few of these were a straight up scam. But man, I mean, it's just sad to watch. So many passion projects have failed because they mismanagement and just poor calculation and the use of funds. And that's just unfortunate because I do think that some of these MMO had a ton of potential to succeed. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Hopefully we can put our hopes and dreams on Ashes of Creation. Now, only God knows when the hell this game is going to see the light of day and if it will be even playable or really just, you know, fun. But, you know what? In the meantime, we have, oh yes, World of Warcraft, and that's pretty much it. And even that is not that good, so we played Turtle. But yeah, that's pretty much all for today's video. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.